Sony exclusives will no longer be coming to PC. According to journalists, the whole issue is that PC doesn't satisfy Sony financially. They made only $2 billion in a couple of years. That's an incredible amount of money, so obviously it's not about the quantity. Today, I want to talk about why the company is acting this way. Personally, I supported them. I bought every port because first, I wanted to experience their games on PC in native 2K at ultra settings, and second, I wanted to support their ambition to expand. But they decided to hell with it. I'm going to explain to you why Sony is the most incompetent PC publisher, emphasis on PC publisher, and why this entire situation reminds me of a regression. One way or another, boys, it's the end of an era. We are evolving again, for heaven's sake, but backwards. Someone stop this. It all started when Jason Schreier and many other journalists confirmed that Sony basically has no plans to port new single-player games to PC, starting with Wolverine. And I am really looking forward to that game. I have a weakness for superhero games for one simple reason. The central character is always incredibly well developed in terms of abilities. That sells the comics, and it can be implemented brilliantly in gameplay. The hero is always unique, which is why I constantly play Batman. I've been breaking every possible record in the challenges across all installments for years. I wanted something new. And I was waiting for Wolverine on PC, but they're telling me, no, you'll play only on a console at 30 FPS for quality and 60 or 120 FPS for performance, period. And I don't understand this attitude from Sony towards the fans of PlayStation games themselves, and the denial of choice regarding which platform to use to experience a game from this publisher. At first, of course, it was clear that Sony was testing the waters, that it was an experiment. But over time, I got the impression that they were thrilled with the PC master race, implying that more ports were coming, just wait. And then they just gave up on everything. They didn't build a community on PC. All their games have some crazy price tag. They launch with almost no trailers, and a marketing campaign is non-existent as a phenomenon. Who are these ports for? They never even explained how their strategy works. With movies, everything is logical. Theatrical release, then 3 months later on physical digital media. With Sony, nothing. They release what they want when they want. They don't care if you've played the first Uncharted games. They immediately offer you the fourth one. We all know that every morning begins with you going to dinner. Who do they take us for? They're insane fans who haven't tried another gaming platform in 30 years. Sony's attitude toward the PC platform is truly legendary. They even restricted game sales in dozens of countries where their service doesn't work, something no one has ever done on such a massive scale. On PC, we don't do that. That's not how we roll. And I think the scandal became a turning point for Sony. They failed to remodel the players to fit their mold. This isn't PSN, where if something happens, you can't even complain. Plus, Sony fired the previous studio director who was actually pushing for PC. And in the end, it was decided to completely abandon PC. But don't you dare abandon PlayStation. The company has 4 reasons for this, so let's highlight the flaws in each and poke some fun at them. Steam dominates here, and Sony doesn't like being a guest in someone else's house. They have to pay a 30% cut on sales, and they can't disable comments. Plus, Sony refuses to understand PC. Here, you can mod, bypass restrictions, and you don't even have to pay for online play, which is a shock to console players. Meanwhile, Sony will go to court over a fan-made 60 FPS patch. Are you guys okay in the head? You're a company about games, but your system feels like a 1980s bank service for your grandma. Steam is chaos where everyone does what they want, so of course Sony hates it. There, their games are no longer 10 out of 10. They look like regular games. The reviews there are honest, not from journalists trying to suck up. Sony got their feelings hurt by the cyberbullying, and their closed-off nature is making them walk away from a pile of money. Sony intended to create a FOMO situation. You play a port, the sequel's coming out soon on console, and you run to buy the hardware. But it didn't happen on the scale Sony hoped for. Sony refuses to understand that people play where it's convenient for them. No one is going to change their habits for the sake of a couple of exclusives you can count on one hand. Sony simply doesn't want to build a PC fandom. Their releases look like a back catalog dump at full price. You can't release 5-year-old games at full price just because they are supposedly timeless premiums. Your games are just like everyone else's. Consequently, people wait for sales, and Sony goes, boo-hoo, we're not getting paid enough. Why don't PC players love us? They are currently releasing Death Stranding 2 on PC with a price tag of €80 for the standard version. Man, we treat PC players like garbage. Why don't they love us? They say the next Xbox will even support Steam. This means Sony games will be everywhere, on PS, PC, and Xbox. Sony definitely doesn't want that, and I can understand it. But you just want to say, the future is here, old man. It's not 2013 anymore. PC is an incredibly vital platform, providing 30–50% of the profit, as confirmed by recent major releases like Resident Evil 9. New players, Gen Z, aren't tied to a specific piece of hardware. They look at hardware prices, upscaling tech, and sales. Sony is cutting itself off from a huge market for the sake of elitism, just locking themselves in a box.
This is the most important one. The younger generation doesn't treat a console like a religion. They mostly don't care what they play GTA Online or Fortnite on, as long as it works well and it's an accessible, convenient console. Sony's fear is that if players have the thought, I don't need to buy a PS6 because the games will be on PC in 2 years, it will hit Sony's business hard. But this is debatable. Everyone who wants a console will buy one. PlayStation is already the main console on Earth. Xbox collapsed not because of a loss of exclusives, but because it became a service with subscriptions and TV, neglecting the games themselves. Spider-Man 2 didn't even sell 1 million copies on PC, specifically because of Sony's attitude toward the platform. I bet many of you only just found out the game is even out on PC because Sony barely talked about it. The most terrible thing is that they talked about openness and pushing boundaries, about how important PC was to them, making us believe this nonsense, only to scrap it all when it became inconvenient. This is business cynicism, and it will hit them hard later. Sony is offering everyone the past. They are closing good studios, abandoning different directions, and for some reason, they are certain this will lead to success. To me, it's complete idiocy. The gaming industry is moving forward, but Sony wants to go back to 2013.
Congrats to the Sony fans. You whined the exclusives back. By the way, they're all gonna cost $80–90 each now. With intro play on PlayStation, all a player has to do is hold down the touchpad during startup, close their eyes, and imagine any desired scenario so that an incredible, ultra-realistic game comes to life right in their own imagination. They can imagine absolutely any game, and even though this is all a joke, for some reason I'm certain Sony fans would buy into it. I'm ready to pay €90 for every new game as long as I know nothing will come out on PC. It's always funny to read such comments. I feel sorry for these people. Imagine, these guys are so empty, their lives are so boring, that their entire identity is built on which console they bought. As soon as a game is taken away from them, in quotes obviously, they feel as if they've lost a part of their elitism. It's a mess. What a pathetic sight. Essentially, that's why Sony left PC. We are too free over here. Thanks for the like and subscription, and see you soon, guys.